Welcome to the Filmistines, the double feature podcast. Join us to unravel the interwoven experience of the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their cursed counterparts, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/filmistines. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $5 tier will grant the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmistines, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience.
They're an experience.
All around you. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmistines. Thank you guys for joining us today. Today I am joined by my punk-ass friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
You can join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmistines. Some recent episodes include the entire franchise of Mad Max, starting with Mad Max 1 all the way to the new Furiosa. There's about 4 hours of analysis across those 5 films. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe for $1. Come request a movie. Go rate us on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much.
Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at hempvillecbd.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we will be discussing Jeremy Saulnier's 2015 film, Green Room. I just wanted to start off by saying that this film has an interesting structure. It starts off somewhere between this character study of fringe-oriented people and maybe mumblecore feeling. But when it starts to get going, it feels just like any other competent slasher feeling film. And I enjoyed it for the most part. It's very good. Very green. Thought it was kind of fun to have this exercise of implementing some kind of green filter or green aesthetic or greenery everywhere you could. Very cool. Much more graphic and violent than I could have ever guessed, which is very fun. And surprisingly strong in performances too. I was really surprised all the personality that came out of these characters. But the moment they felt confident to take this into their own hands, I was just like, not really liking these few minutes, but it quickly changes when the violence is very cool. So I'm like, okay, fine trade-off. But I'm very curious how you feel about The Green Room. This film was on my radar for some time now. I can't remember how it got there. But you like violent thriller films. You like blood and gore. You're the only Saw fan I know. So how do you feel about The Green Room, my man?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious I liked it. It does have some horror elements that I like, and just the horror vibe, even if it's not the tropey element, just that kind of intensity and suspense that we have going on here is pretty cool. I also like this theme we kind of have going on here with our band members being at the wrong place, wrong time, and not being able to get yourself out of a situation when you're put in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that anxiety behind it, along with the suspense. I thought that was pretty neat. But I'm right there with you. Our band members are pretty good. Our main lead was pretty great. I thought the pacing was great. I wasn't bored at any point, which I thought I would be with how this movie started. But I think the film quickly changed that vibe. The cinematography wasn't bad. And yeah, I loved all the gore, all the brutal parts of it. It was very good. And it kept me at the edge of my seat.
I mean, absolutely. It's also, aside from its exercise in what green looks like on camera, it's an exercise in manipulating the audience into sharing some of that anxiety, because it's a lot of close quarters, it's a lot of helplessness in a really grounded way. because we're dealing with very capable, organized, militant-minded people. We even get this element of arguable frustration in hearing some of the dialogue at certain points because of the music in the background and just the noises and stuff. It's very interesting and fun. It did feel like this movie was going for some intentional messaging with its desert island band and the story about the paintball. So I'm very curious what you have to say about those elements. But this jump into this Nazi-infested bar turn heroin kind of headquarters was very cool. What did you think about the whole presence of Nazis? We had this Nazi suck song, which was just like, what? What is this song? Which is a real song, apparently. And it incites this dude to be violent, I guess. I don't know if that girl just had it coming or not, but things quickly got out of control when the movie kind of found its own.
Well, they killed her because she was leaving with Daniel, right? And they obviously knew something about what these neo-Nazi guys were doing, because we have a weapon that we find in his trunk and it's wrapped like maybe they were going to go snitch on them or something. So they had a point for killing Emily that had nothing to do with our band at all. They were just really trying to be funny, and it didn't quite work out in their favor. But yeah, that's a big contrast to have these neo-Nazis be the antagonist while we have our rock band. Because typically rock bands of this sound are totally against that kind of stuff. They're against the man, they're against anything. I don't know if I'm explaining it well at all, but I'm not a punk rocker. But they just give off that vibe of, we're not gonna live for this shit that they are, but it's a gig, so we have to be here. It's money that we need right now. It's totally coincidental that they're there and that they have to go back for the phone because she left it. And I mean, they could have just gone their own merry way, but it's weird. And we don't have any Nazi shit here. We don't have any white supremacy stuff here.
Yeah, they're kind of just the backbone for the bad guy. There's no ideological agenda on either side.
Right. Because that song that they sing, it, like I said, it was just kind of like a prank song. It wasn't even anything against them. It was just them being stupid to catch attention. Because the real problem here was that they were dealing drugs. And they had a whole drug operation in the bottom, right?
I guess it's not explicitly stated, but yeah, I would assume so. We don't want cops sniffing around inside the building whatsoever because of all this heroin that we're sending around.
So I don't know the necessity to make them neo-Nazis.
I like it a lot because it puts you in this like very rural part of America, maybe a little desolate even feeling, and it kind of places these very modern people in a great place to have a horror movie. They don't have a social media presence. It's kind of like how a lot of horror really needs to take place before phones and the internet, because otherwise you might be able to just call help in a number of ways, right?
Right.
What's the scariest thing you might find in the woods? Animals, right? Maybe secret meetings of secret societies, Maybe you don't have to go too far. It's kind of grounds itself. And it makes for a really surprising conflict. Probably mostly because you really just don't see neo-Nazi stuff on movies or TV. Maybe sort of a taboo thing.
And as far as the paintball story, I liked it a lot. I thought it was very well executed in the way that they interrupted him. And then shit went crazy and everyone died except them two. And that girl Amber was finally like, well, you know what? I'd like to hear the rest of your story. And then the rest of the story was told. And that acted as a break, not only to them, but to the audience, that we could finally breathe from all this craziness. But it also gave a solution, because the whole time I was thinking, How the hell are they going to get out of this? They're not gonna win. There's no way. But that story provided an answer. That story provided the cleverness and that survivalness and resilience that they needed to get out of the situation.
There's even a tinge of an emphasis on nonconformity too, which is fun because they're rock and roll people, in that the conformity of this and the deterministic kind of nature of the situation would definitely end in whatever the neo-Nazis wanted. But then all of a sudden there's this deeply humanitarian thing, and that nope, we're not going to let things end in a so-called survival of the fittest manner. We're going to do that human thing and try. Hence some of the horror elements and horror decision making, and maybe because it's not supernatural, it feels a little bit more hopeful by the end of his story. It's like, oh man, everyone knows what a little bit of drive can do.
Yeah, that's very well said, because in between his story, I think he also says, I don't want to die here next to you in this room, or something like that. Building to that fighting for your life element that the story brings. How can I get clever to get out of the situation? And maybe use that fear that I'm feeling right now to get out of the situation. Because I do not want to die here right now next to you. And I liked a lot what you said about this theme we have going on here about nonconformance. Because before I knew what a green room was, I thought we were just kind of drawing on the color green symbolism here with all the green hues, the green room, the title.
The woods.
The woods, yeah, the nature. Green is a very natural color. It tends to emphasize this life, rebirth maybe, or even money. It's got all this positive connotation to it that it was hard to me to place the feeling of this green we have going on here, because green is also even maybe like a safety color, not quite like yellow, but maybe like a go ahead, everything's fine, it's green, you're good. Green means good.
Green means go.
Green means go. Exactly. And the only time I could think of green being maybe a not so positive color is around the envy realm, or maybe the nausea realm, and that wasn't quite fitting here. So I like what you said about nonconformance, because maybe that's what this movie's trying to say about the green. Don't conform to the feeling of all this greenness we have here. It's like lying to you. It's catching you off guard. Because the introduction to this movie is so serene. And I don't know if I quite call it mumblecore, but I get what you're trying to say with that feeling.
Yeah.
Because their actions are too odd.
Yeah, the actions are not mumblecore, but the feeling of how they're interacting.
Yes.
How it's shot. Yeah.
There's this serenity, just this life going on moment. Yeah, I completely agree. And then bam, after, I guess it's after Pat, our main character, really, gets mauled when he's trying to give them the gun, and his hand gets mauled on the door, and then shit just starts going crazy. And after that, that vibe of life just happening is completely gone. So there you go again with non-conforming. The green hues were tricking you. We're tricking the audience.
Sure. That also plays into them picking the bands, their desert island bands. Because in the beginning they chose what I would assume were punk rock bands, metal bands, whatever they were. But later in the movie, most of them changed their answer, which really struck a chord with me, because I assume it's probably always been like this across all fandoms, but fandoms have an image. They have an image to maintain, and there's a lot of gatekeeping. And of course, some gatekeeping is very good and necessary, I think, to help incubate culture, but it can force an uncomfortable kind of conformity. And this isn't really the movie for the breakout of individuality, because it's
Yeah.
So it tiptoes around that, I think, a little bit in a funny, quirky way, because it's revisited like 3 times. But it does kind of embrace this theme of nonconformity and even pretending to be things you're not, which we also get through the paintball story, and then them pretending to be capable to handle the situation, which they end up doing pretty decently. What do you think about these shocking, twisty kind of elements where we get Pat get his arm mangled, or we see that other guy in the room get his belly sliced open, or the dog mauling someone's neck, or even Patrick Stewart as the neo-Nazi leader? These shocking elements. The heroine, you know?
Yeah, most of the brutality here is very quick, in the sense of it's just being thrown at you. There's no build up to it. There's no suspense to the mangling.
Yeah, that's kind of the un-horror thing.
Yeah. As soon as he sticks his hand out there, you're not expecting
Yeah.
them to start stabbing the way they did, and him pulling his hand back in, and it's like all dangling there. And when she cuts the belly, there is no lead up to it. I mean, she's giving off these vibes that she's not quite there in the head, because she's quick to say, yeah, shoot him, yeah, kill him. But it was so unexpected, because that wasn't necessary. But I guess they had to make sure he was dead so he wouldn't come up behind them, which is pretty smart if you ask me, because in a lot of these horror movies, they don't make sure that person's dead, and then 10 minutes later they get got because they didn't make sure. But it just happened out of nowhere. And even our other 2 band members dying so quick in the beginning by the dog. I thought we were going to have most of them survive. And then once I saw they weren't surviving, I thought we were going to have maybe 1 survivor or no survivors. Just from how brutal this movie was, and from how just unexpected everything was. Because even Daniel's death was unexpected. He was searching for something at the bar and was letting them know, like, okay, here's the plan, here's how we're about to get out, and then boom, his head gets shot off.
Yeah, I saw this film was criticized a bit for being a little too explicit with its violence and killing. With, I think, exactly what you're saying, in that there wasn't a lot of build-up for the specific actions. And I can't say anything to that other than that not everything's for everyone kind of things.
Yeah. And I'll praise this movie for accepting that their audience is not dumb. They don't need a fancy score to let you know someone's about to get got. They don't need to give you clues throughout the whole movie to let you know someone's about to get stabbed or a dog's about to show up and maul everyone. Because even with its minimal dialogue, they throw bits and pieces of information out there for you to let you know what happened. To let you know what's going on without having to spoon feed it to you. One of the examples that stands out to me is when Darcy tells one of his guys that there's 1 bad batch going around. And that's it. That's all he says. And the other minion wasn't like, what? What are you talking about? Oh, you gave that to him? Like,
yeah.
What? Like, no, we know what that means. And we even have like a split second on the screen where one of them is dead, I think, or one's about to die. I don't exactly remember. And no words were there. And no extra long shots on one of them dying or a zoom in on the drug he had handed them.
Yeah.
Like, it's expecting
for you to pay attention.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
That's well said, actually. I didn't think about that. That's really well said. It's kind of the antithesis of something like a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah, because I think another example is when he asked the guy with the dog if we have a no trespassing sign. And then he says no, but we have a beware of dog sign. And he's like, perfect, excellent. You're like, what? Why?
Yeah, he was like, that's even better.
Yeah, that's
I was
even
like,
better.
What? That's even better?
Why? Okay. And then it's not until the end of the movie you're like, oh, they needed that sign to make it look like they trespassed and the dog got them. Like, it's expecting you to pay attention. Exactly. That was very well said.
What was that moment when our two main characters, very horror-esque too, were sitting on a log or something right after they had killed Darcy, and the dog pulls up and he's strutting along, and they, pull the guns out. They're out of ammo, very Zombielandish even. But the dog goes over to his master, whatever, the dead guy, and lays down next to him. What is that mirroring? I can't wrap my mind quite around it.
That's actually my favorite scene in the whole entire movie, because we have this vicious dog doing some very vicious things, and very obviously they're trying to kill him because he didn't do his job right. He's getting old, whatever. So he's got about like an hour to live or something, and he just curls up next to his friend so he can die right next to him. And I think that's trying to tell us that no matter how vicious something might be, no matter what actions somebody has taken, we're all still human, and that dog is still a dog, and that's still his friend, and there's more complexity to people than just bad and good. Now that I think about it, Jeremy did a really great job with these neo-Nazis not being explicit neo-Nazis, not making them super white supremacists. I don't know how you would do that in a film, because like you said, there's not many films like that. But
yeah, man, and I totally get it. Nazis, skinheads are people too.
Yeah,
they have families, they have feelings. Like that one guy, we didn't really get any indication that he was a neo-Nazi, but he was obviously the management of this establishment, maybe. And he was very uncomfortable the whole time during this movie.
Yeah,
I liked him a lot. That was the Gabe character played by Macon Blair, and they let him go at the end.
Just like they let the dog go. So maybe he's mirroring Gabe, and that not all of them are bad. I liked what you said earlier in the episode about this movie being filmed in close quarters. And it gave me the Whale vibes with its very contained room. Maybe not the same mood, but just how it was shot. And it also made me think of Darren Aronofsky saying to Sadie Sink and Ty Simpkins, the girl and the boy in the movie, about them having a very small chance to do another scene behind a door. And here we have a scene behind a door. So I like those elements and those interactions, but, obviously different moods. And in The Whale, we know the characters a little bit more, and we kind of know their intentions on both sides. We know who to trust, not who to trust. And here we don't know anything about Darcy on the other side to help build that anxiety and suspense. But I like that because they're right. It's so rare to see a scene happening behind a door.
Yeah, and another cool element of, I think, building that anxiety is the film is shot what it feels to be head level. So when we're with the band members, it feels like we're a character in that room, and kind of similar when we're out with the skinheads. Less important with them because we're just kind of getting the rundown of how capable they are and how many guns they have and how they're trying to make this look a specific way. But when we're with the band members, we stay with the band members. We don't get shots, over Darcy's shoulder looking at the band members. We are one of them.
Man, talk about throwing you in there too. No wonder I felt so anxious. I was in the room with them. That's pretty clever. I didn't even think about that. Before I talk about the end of the movie and your thoughts about it, I saw that the guy who plays Pat, Anton Yelkin, I believe that's how I would pronounce it, he passed away in 2016 in an accidental death involving his Jeep. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that was so sad. Apparently, the Jeep he had a manufacturing fault where it tended to roll backwards even if you put the brake on or something. I mean, there was a lawsuit and everything. The parents sued the Jeep Wrangler people, and it was pretty crazy. a year after he had done this film, which is pretty sad. Of course, someone dying, but he had potential. I liked him in this movie. I thought he was a good leader. I thought he was a good protagonist.
R.I.P. in pieces, Anton.
R.I.P. in pieces. Now, the end of the movie. How did you feel about that scene where he says, I know what my desert island band is now. And she basically tells him to shut the fuck up. She don't care.
Yeah, this is when that explicit messaging enters the spotlight. I'm not exactly sure what that was.
Yeah, I was confused by it. I don't know how it would have changed for me if she would have said, oh, well, what is it? Now I have to know.
Yeah, I don't know how to take it because no matter what he would have said, we would have already gotten in that one scene where they said that Prince and like Britney Spears or whoever was their favorite. But that final song, that credits song, was Sinister Purpose by Creedence Clearwater Revival. I think that would have fit that bill because it wasn't this hardcore metal band, punk band. And I'm also not sure what Creedence Clearwater would say about his personality.
The movie said it for him.
Yeah, when the credits started rolling, that song immediately started. It cut him off. That's the band. Like, okay. Is that explosion of personality and identity and individualism coming out of him in that moment? Because I feel like this isn't the movie for that.
Is it because now he survived and he's got to live his life now? He's got to make these decisions now?
Yeah, it's like when you have a near-death experience, now you've got to achieve all those dreams and be your true self.
Is that what this is?
I don't think so. That's cheesy as fuck. But there was this element of them kind of hiding their true selves.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't know. It was off. It was off to me. It wasn't this wrapped in a bow ending.
And we didn't have the character complexity or dialogue for something to really be chewed on, I feel like. So, I don't know, it's a fun kind of backbone to have these small little themes and threads echoed throughout, especially in something that's very akin to a horror structured film. You know, those aren't very deep in any form from any angle.
That's true.
But there's also this hint of sort of like maybe in 1917 where no matter how shitty things are, you'll have this urge to kind of cut up and just say stuff like, what's your top 5 favorite whatever? Remember this one time when we were stupid and at 10 years old?
Yeah, and maybe that's what Amber represented in this situation. Us saying, man, shut the fuck up. You almost just died. Like, there's not time for that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that was. I thought it was funny with the ending song. I was like, okay. What I think you want to tell me is on the tip of my tongue, but I can't quite place a finger on it. But very nice, very nice. But on that note, man, thank you for watching this movie with me. It's been on my radar for a few years. I'm glad you liked it. Thank you for talking about it here today.
You're welcome. Thank you for making me watch this.
You're welcome. Now you're a little bit cultured.
Now I am a little bit cultured.
Do you want to start a punk band and go perform for some neo-Nazis?
I think I'm fine. And if I ever do, I am keeping my phone on me.
Yeah, that explicit moment of we're not on social media because we like living in the moment. It's kind of funny that they're not on social media. It helps play up the horror element, of course. But I did enjoy this monologue of the ephemeral nature of music. And that's somewhere in the backbone of the ephemeral nature of just life and how quickly it can be taken away from you, too. And part of me wishes that notion was investigated just a tiny bit more. But yeah, man, do you have a budget guess for me?
Like all good horror movies, even though it's not technically a horror movie, they're usually low budget. And it's an A24 film.
Was that surprising?
That was surprising.
Oh, was it? I figured the color gradient was like, oh, super A24.
Okay. it was surprising that it was good.
The Whale is A24.
What? No way.
Yeah.
But that's like more recent A24 films.
That is fair. That is completely fair. A24 only got good with Hereditary, maybe 2019.
Yeah, so exactly. And I didn't know what year this movie was when we watched it.
Oh, should I start telling you that?
No, don't tell me that. I like finding out, being like, what? This was 2015? Okay. But, you know, A24 films are also lower budget, so I want to go less than 10, but I don't think it's quite 5. So I went 7 million.
Well, it says here that it was 5 million, so...
Not bad. Not bad.
But it went on to make 3.8 million
Oh,
at
no.
the box office. It's a culture movie, you know? This isn't a movie that makes any money, so they probably didn't expect to make very much money, so it is what it is.
It's very well loved. I mean, I'm very curious to see what the Letterboxd score is.
Well, with 363,000 people, none of them went to the movie theater to see it, and they weighed in at a 3.7.
That's pretty high.
Yeah, that's super high.
Yeah, it's always funny that these movies have very high scores, and then the box office is like, it tanked. What? Okay. But maybe it's one of those things that it just has to sit with the culture to know how people really feel about them. Or more shit has to come out for you to appreciate what you had. Maybe it's one of those situations. But I'm giving it a 3. Will it move? Maybe. I gotta think about it a little more.
Yeah, this is a solid 2.5. This is the baseline of movies right here. Leaves a little bit to chew on. Aesthetically very awesome. Shot very interestingly. Great performances. Surprising. Very good film. Very, very good.
Yeah, if I do change my score, I would bring it to a 2.5. But right now, I'm at a 3 just coming off of it.
Well, man, thank you again for talking about this film here today, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Filmistines. Remember, we post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on patreon.com/Filmistines, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come request a movie, come subscribe for $1, $2. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained new insights and perspectives in the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines. And follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching, keep loving the magic of movies. This is the Filmistines signing off.